Retro Rewind.
This week, we're clocking in with the 1980 comedy classic 9 to 5, starring Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, and Dolly Parton. This film tackles workplace sexism with humor and heart. But does this tale of office rebellion still resonate today, or is it stuck in the past? Let's punch the time clock and find out.
Gary, I did tumble out of bed and stumble to the kitchen for this bad boy.
Yeah.
Listen, that's RT, Rotten Tomatoes, our good friend, sitting at 69 and 74. So, not, I won't say loved, but enjoyed by the masses. Now, for me, I'm going to tell you this. This is a fun movie. I was looking forward to watching this.
Yeah.
I had memories of this movie. Some of the scenes came back to me quickly. I only have a couple of notes because it was just fun. I sat and watched this movie. It was enjoyable. My one little one that I thought was funny because of the genericness of the company. I like how the company was called Consolidated Companies. That was the name of it. I don't know what they do, but they're Consolidated Companies.
Yeah.
And then, there's so much of this. It's set in 1980, so you got to keep in mind. I'm assuming it was made in 1980, so I'm assuming it was set in 1980.
Right.
And this was back at the height of corporate America and secretaries and, bring a notepad in, take a memo, not the swinging 40s guy. Hey, take a memo, noise, but just come in and take a memo. And God, that crazy corporate world. And I remember telling Teresa we're watching this, and I said that when they showed Dabney Coleman's house, which by the way, Dabney Coleman is a real treat to watch. I know we have a favorite movie that we like of his, but he's really he was a great actor. But if you remember his house in the movie, and I said to Teresa, I said, keep this in mind. He probably afforded that house on about a $50,000 salary.
Yeah.
Because, these secretaries are probably making, $12,000 a year.
Yeah.
He's making like 50, maybe 60. And he's got a beautiful house in the suburbs. He's probably got a new Chrysler LeBaron sitting in the driveway. Just
nice pool, Chrysler LeBaron.
I was digging for what's a very mediocre car that people.
At least you didn't go, Le Mans or something.
Le Mans.
What you're doing, whether you have enough money to buy a Le Mans or buy a cheeseburger.
It's a Pontiac. Okay.
No, what I meant is
Mons. So this was Dolly Parton's first film role. I didn't realize that until going back and looking at the info about the movie and that. Right. So it was interesting to find out because
she was great.
Yeah, she was really good.
I said, she's because I looked it up too. I said, she's such a good actress. I wonder how many roles she'd had prior to this, and she really hadn't. She'd been on TV and with Porter Wagner. I think she'd done some Hee Haw and whatnot, but nothing like this. This is a major role, and she was a major part of the film.
Yeah. I will say another thing that I found interesting about it was they have, for anybody that hasn't seen it, they each one of them have their little moment of fantasizing what they would do to their boss, who's the villain of the film.
The guy above Gary.
Yeah, the one up here.
Which that whole scene is just.
Yeah, this is funny stuff right here. But what I don't think I realized, because how old were we? 11 when this movie was out. So seen at 11 or 12, you don't pick up on the theme. I mean, it's real simple. It's real easy watching it. As an adult, you're like, Diesel Pete's. It's almost like you're getting beat over the head with it. But as a kid, you don't really realize it. But I didn't put together, and I did remember the scenes of their individual, fantasies. What I didn't realize, and I never recalled as a kid anyway, thinking back, seeing it, was that they almost all play out too. They each get their moment that's very similar to their fantasy. I didn't catch that until watching it again now.
No.
And I thought that was interesting the way they wrote that into the story. How they made it kind of like their fantasy sort of plays out, even at the detriment of it. Like, I don't remember the whole Lily Tomlin part. I didn't remember any of that. That was hilarious. And it did remind me that I wanted Tara to watch The Incredible Shrinking Woman. So it's like,
wow, another
throwback.
Yeah. Well, the things that were like funny is I mean, look, if there's gonna be spoil. You haven't seen this movie. It's sorry.
It's 1980.
I mean, 45 years basically. The fact that the sugar substitute, the sweetener, and rat poison had identical packaging.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. You accidentally picked it up in the wrong, the part of the study. Anyway, yeah, that's.
But the comedy of errors was funny. The way things are misled. The fact that, I mean, the whole dead body scenes.
Mm-hmm.
How nonchalant they are about a dead body, and then like, oh, it's the wrong body.
Yeah, that's one of the things I totally forgot all of that. All of that scene.
They're like, you want to come check this out? First of all, I'd still be freaking out that we stole a body. Second of all, like, you're so like, check this out. Who is this guy?
Yeah. We got a problem here, folks.
How would I know that? I've been with you the whole time. And to pander to the woman that might be watching this, I do wonder, because Gary, we are middle-class white American males. How much of this you think really was part of, and even today's time, women in our lives, do you think this kind of sexism, and not sexist, sexism?
What's wrong with being sexy?
Hey, baby.
What's wrong with being sexy? I mean, there's no sexist.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, because when we're watching this, Teresa's telling me, she's like, I'm not trying to get on a bandwagon. She goes, but I've had similar things like she told me one thing, and I'll put it out there, that for anybody that does not know and anybody who doesn't care, honestly, Teresa is she has a doctorate and a master's degree. She's very intelligent, and she's earned it all. This is going back many years ago. She was the director of a department at the company she worked for. So there's her and then another guy. He was the director of his department, and then there was a boss. The boss walked out and said, his secretary was it. They said, Teresa, would you go grab me a cup of coffee? And she looked at him. She goes, excuse me? And he says, would you get me a cup of coffee? She goes, why don't you ask him to get you a cup of coffee? We have the same degrees. Why did you ask me? And he goes, well, what's the big deal? She goes, because you assumed I would get you coffee. She goes, I don't get you coffee. I don't get anybody coffee. My 8 years of education tells I don't get people coffee.
Yeah.
But his assumption was, oh, Teresa, go grab me a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And it's subtle. And we don't think of it. But I mean, I think about, like, I was watching this film. I was like, God, men are pigs sometimes.
Well, I will say this. I think that you get anybody in a position of power, and I hate to turn this into like some sort of serious.
I know it. I don't want to do that, but yes.
It just sucks because it just seems like, why can't you, when you obtain a sort of a power position, that you can't just be normal? You know what I mean? And there's people that abuse that. And I think that's a big part of it. It's just power trip that people have. I
mean, it's funny, like, to stay on the coffee thing for a minute. There's like, just last night, Teresa was in the kitchen making something, and she says, do you need anything? And I wanted a cup of coffee, and I didn't even feel obligated. She's in there already going, do you want me to grab you a cup of coffee? And I said, no, I'll come and get it. Just because I could never think to ask anybody to grab me a cup of coffee, or, I would never say, hey, honey, would you go grab me a Coke Zero while you're not in the kitchen? Could you get up and go do that for me? I don't work like that. But again, I've never had any power or authority, so maybe it changes you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to get off on a tangent. But it was funny, and you think, because she was like, I'm laughing, but she was like, you think that's funny, but this is probably based on a lot of,
at the time, not funny,
true instances.
Oh, I'm sure it is. It was inspired by Jane Fonda's conversation with 9 to 5, a labor group advocating for better working conditions for women. The group focused on issues like pay equity, sexual harassment, and better treatment. So it's actually based on that. So I'm assuming that means that there probably were quite a few instances of that kind of thing going on.
All right. Well, anyway.
But to turn to a lighter tone, let's talk about the song. The
Dude,
theme
that's where I
song.
wanted to go next. Good
Yeah.
deal. What do you got? Because I have thoughts.
I'd love to hear him. I think the song is great. And if you actually listen to the lyrics, which, you kind of know the first set of lyrics because you, especially seeing the movie so much when I was younger, I remember the first little bit. But if you continue listening to all the different verses in that, and it's a really good song. It's got some really good lines in it.
It's well written.
Yeah.
The two things I will say, I don't know if you know this, but did you know her fingernails
Oh yeah. Yeah.
are that
Yeah.
that was, it's actually, I think it's listed on the liner notes, played by Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
And the other thing I told Teresa, I said, and I said this, I said, coming from just a musician's point of view, it's brilliance in the production that if you listen closely, you hear the typewriters.
Yeah.
There's typewriter going on in sync with it.
Right.
It's the typewriter is an instrument in this song.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a subtle reminding you that this is a song about working 9 to 5 women in a secretarial pool.
Mm.
And I think that, that's brilliance to me. It's little, but I was like that, and it probably was a flippant comment. Hey, throw some typewriter in there, dollface.
I bet it would be Dolly Parton that probably came up with it, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, she is way smarter, I think, than people think she is.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, the song is just great to listen to.
Did you know that they did a Broadway musical adaptation of this? Because I did not. Or if I did, I'd forgotten it.
Now that you say that, that does sound vaguely familiar. I can't say for sure that I knew that, but
back in 2009, and Dolly Parton wrote the score. The musical expanded on the themes and characters while adding new songs. So it's interesting. Also, another note to the popularity of this film, it grossed over $100 million and was the second highest grossing film of 1980.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So now I will tell you this. I think it maybe it's the time period. Tara was watching it with me, and I feel like she ended up liking it overall, but during it she was a little on the bored side,
Oh, really?
And I think it's a pacing thing. I think pacing of films have changed so much. Although we saw Nosferatu, and that was, but some of these older comedies, it's like, or maybe she's just impatient. It could be her. Like, get to the point, like something happened. And I was like, there's a setup. You have to have the setup of the movie. These are all foreshadowing things that are, setting up the film. And I don't know that she has patience for it anymore, or maybe I'm,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see that, but there's a film we're going to talk about in another episode that I had an issue with the pacing being a little too fast.
Yeah.
And I'll bring that up. You got to stay tuned. Next episode.
It might be.
Or previous episode we talked about, Ray, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, maybe you already know.
Forget about it.
One last thing I will say for the casting. Originally, Jane Fonda envisioned the movie as a drama, and she wanted Anne Bancroft or Carol Burnett to star. I can't picture it as a serious movie. I think it gets the point across way better as a comedy. And man, if you take Dabney Coleman out, I mean, don't have.
Yeah, I mean, then what do you do? Do you take Dabney Coleman out and put in?
Do it, Andy. Say it. I got nothing.
No, I just do a.
Oh,
damn it!
Yay!
Never mind. Yeah, you take Dabney Coleman out and then get somebody else.
Then you put some serious guy in there.
Damn it! It's gonna hit me as soon as you hit stop. He was in The French Connection, Gary.
Oh, Gene Hackman.
There it is. God dang it! I'm like, George, no. Yeah, who'd you put in there? Gene Hackman as the real dick of a boss? Hey.
I'm not editing that, by the way. There's not going to be like a little clip or why don't you put in there Gene Hackman? It's not going to be like that.
Yeah, my mouth be moving and you're like, Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Gene Hackman replaces Dabney Coleman. You get rid of Dolly, you put in Cara Burnett. And Anne Bancroft. And this movie is not successful at all.
No. It's not the same movie at all.
There it is. The foot is down.
It's going down.
Marge?
Oh, well, I enjoyed watching again. The director and co-writer of this film, Colin Higgins, is going to come up in another episode.
Oh, good. Very
soon. And we'll talk about that particular person.
Or did he?
Or maybe I already talked about him. Yeah. Did I? I don't remember.
Or maybe.
Is this Groundhog Day? What's going on? All right, Andy, anything else?
No.
You done?
Good movie. Go see it. If you haven't seen it, find a way to watch it. Stream it.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
Yeah.
Check it out. And let us know in the comments what you thought about 9 to 5, people.
Yeah.
Peace.
Working 9 to 5. What a way to make a living. Barely getting by.
The Tommy twins are at it again, hoping to plaster your face with a grin. We're taking it back to a good old time when Hollywood had hit their stride. We're talking about nostalgic flicks, and we're hoping to get some like button clicks. Flick flops, retro rewind, going back to a better time when the movies with your honey didn't cost so much damn money. Flick flops, retro rewind. How about you like and subscribe?
This has been a Touch of Madness production. Brought to you by the creative minds at Tommy Twins Media.